Why your first year of retirement is the most dangerous tax year. Here's a number that surprises almost everyone I talk to. Your first year of retirement can push you into a higher tax bracket than any single year you worked. Not your highest earning year on the job, not the year you got that big promotion. Your first year off the job, the year you finally stopped working. I've seen retirees owe the IRS $4,000, $5,000, even $6,000 more than they expected in the 1 year they thought they'd finally catch a break. And almost none of them saw it coming until it was already too late to fix. So here's what we're doing today, friend. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why this 1 year is so different from every year before it. Walk you through a real story of a couple who got blindsided by it 2 years after the fact, and give you 3 things to check right now before December 31st, so this doesn't happen to you. Before we get into it, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I put out a new video like this every week, walking through exactly the kind of retirement money traps that nobody warns you about ahead of time. And if you know someone who's retiring this year or next, do them a favor and share this with them. This is exactly the kind of thing that catches good, careful, responsible people completely off guard. I'm Anne, and for years now, I've helped people make sense of what actually happens to their money once the paychecks stop coming. So let's slow down and get into why this first year matters so much more than people expect. Why the first year is different. Here's the thing nobody tells you when you're sitting down planning your retirement date. Every other year of your working life, your income is fairly predictable. Same salary, same withholding, roughly the same tax bracket year after year. The IRS knows what to expect from you, and frankly, so do you. But your first year of retirement, that year is a pileup. It's the 1 year where several different income sources, ones that normally never overlap, all crash into the same 12 months. Think about everything that can land in that single calendar year. You've got a partial year of salary from January right up until your retirement date. Then there's a payout for unused vacation or sick time. And for a lot of people, that's not small. Sometimes it's tens of thousands of dollars paid out all at once as a lump sum. Maybe there's a small severance package or a final bonus tucked in there too. Then, if you decide to start Social Security that same year, that income begins layering on top. And if you touch your retirement accounts at all, even just a modest withdrawal to bridge the gap before Social Security kicks in, that adds one more layer on top of everything else. Now here's the important part. None of these income sources feel unusual on their own. A vacation payout is normal. Starting Social Security is normal. A partial year of salary is normal. Each one by itself looks perfectly reasonable. But stack all of them into one 12-month period, and you can accidentally shove yourself into a much higher tax bracket than you've ever experienced for one single year. Now let me actually walk you through why that happens, because once you see the mechanics, this stops feeling mysterious and starts feeling obvious. Our tax system works in marginal brackets. That means you don't pay one flat rate on all of your income. Instead, your income gets sliced into layers, and each layer gets taxed at its own rate, starting low and climbing as you go up. Let's use simple, rounded, hypothetical numbers just to see the shape of it. I'm not quoting exact current tax law here, just illustrating the mechanism. Say the first slice of your income, up to a certain amount, gets taxed at 10%. The next slice, above that, gets taxed at 12%. The slice above that, maybe 22%, and so on, climbing upward the more you earn. In a normal working year, your salary fills up the lower slices and maybe dips into one of the middle ones. Predictable, same as always. But in your first retirement year, you're not just filling those lower slices with salary anymore. You're filling them with salary, then stacking a vacation payout right on top of that. Then stacking Social Security income on top of that. Then maybe stacking a retirement account withdrawal on top of all of it. Every one of those layers pushes your total income further up the ladder. And the higher you climb, the higher the tax rate on that next dollar becomes. This is Here's why. 2 perfectly reasonable decisions. Take the vacation payout, start Social Security a little early, can combine to shove you into a bracket you've genuinely never touched before. Even though your actual take-home spending didn't change at all. You didn't get richer. You just got taxed like you did for 1 year. And here's the part that really catches people off guard, because it's not just your regular income tax bracket you need to worry about. 2 years after a high income year, Medicare looks back at your tax return and checks something called your modified adjusted gross income. If that number crosses certain thresholds, Medicare raises your Part B and Part D premiums. That's called an IRMAA surcharge, income-related monthly adjustment amount. Here's what makes IRMA especially sneaky. It doesn't scale smoothly. It works in tiers, almost like steps on a staircase. Cross a threshold by even $1, and you don't just pay a little more. You can get bumped into an entirely new, higher surcharge tier for that whole year. Miss the threshold by $1, and you owe nothing extra. Cross it by $1, and you could be paying hundreds of dollars more per month for both spouses for a full 12 months. And remember, this surcharge doesn't show up this year. It shows up 2 years later, based on a tax return you may have honestly forgotten the details of by the time the letter arrives. Take a breath here, because this is the trap. The bill for this year's mistake doesn't even show up on the calendar this year. It shows up 2 years from now in a letter you weren't expecting for a decision you'd already forgotten making. Tom and Linda's story. Let me tell you about Tom and Linda, because their story is the clearest example I've seen of exactly this trap. Tom retired from his job in June after 32 years with the same company. He and Linda were about as careful and responsible as retirees come, the kind of people who paid off their mortgage early and never carried a credit card balance. Between January and June, Tom earned his normal salary, same as always. When he officially retired, the company paid out his unused vacation time, 11 weeks of it, worth just over $18,000, all landed in one paycheck. Linda was still working part-time at the time, and because Tom didn't want to feel like he was doing nothing financially, he decided to start his Social Security benefit right away, the very next month after retiring. On paper, none of these decisions looked reckless. Each one made complete sense in isolation. A vacation payout is just money you already earned. Starting Social Security a little early felt responsible, not risky. But when they sat down to file taxes that following spring, they were stunned. They owed over $5,000 more than any year before in their entire working lives, because that vacation payout, 5 months of Social Security income, and Tom's partial year salary had all stacked into the same marginal bracket ladder we just walked through, layer on layer, pushing their total income into a noticeably higher bracket than they'd ever occupied. And then, 2 years later, a letter arrived from Medicare. Because that one unusually high-income year had crossed an IRMAA threshold, their Medicare premiums were being raised for both Tom and Linda for a full year. Linda told me, and I remember this exactly, "We felt like we were being punished for retiring." They weren't being punished. They simply didn't know that this particular year plays by a completely different set of rules than every year that came before it. And that's exactly why we're walking through this together today. The 3 things to check. So here is your framework, friend. 3 things to check before this year closes out. And yes, this applies even if you're already halfway through your first year of retirement right now. Number 1, check your withholding. When you leave a job partway through the year, taxes often aren't withheld the way you'd naturally expect from that final paycheck, from a vacation payout, or from your first few Social Security checks. A lot of retirees assume Social Security automatically withholds enough to cover taxes. It usually doesn't, unless you specifically request it using a form called a W-4V. So pull up your most recent pay stub and your Social Security statement and see what's actually being withheld, not what you're assuming is being withheld. That gap is where the surprise bill comes from. Number 2, control what lands in the fourth quarter. If you have any flexibility at all, a year-end bonus, a retirement account withdrawal, a Roth conversion you've been considering, think carefully about whether it truly needs to happen within this calendar year, or whether it could reasonably wait until January instead. Remember those marginal brackets stacking on top of each other? Sometimes simply pushing one piece of income into next year is the entire difference between staying comfortably in your normal tax bracket and spiking unexpectedly into a much higher one, or crossing an IRA tier you didn't even know was there. Number 3. Look 2 years ahead, not just at this year's tax return. Remember Tom and Linda. The tax return you file this coming spring isn't the only bill you need to think about. If this year's income is unusually high because of a pileup like the one we just walked through, ask yourself whether it might cross a Medicare IRA threshold 2 years from now. And if you have any room at all to smooth that income out, even a little, it can spare you that surprise letter down the road, the same one that caught Tom and Linda so off guard. Have you actually checked your withholding yet this year? Be honest with me. Most people haven't. Go take a look right after you finish this video. Recap. Let's bring this all back together because I know that was a lot. Your first year of retirement stacks income in a way that no other year of your life does. Partial salary, a payout check, Social Security, and maybe a retirement account withdrawal, all landing in the same 12 months, climbing layer by layer up the marginal bracket ladder. That pileup can push you into a higher tax bracket right now, and it can trigger a Medicare IRA surcharge 2 years down the road. So, check your withholding, control what lands in the fourth quarter. And look 2 years down the road, not just at this year's tax return. Here's the good news, friend, and I want you to really hear this part. This is fixable. Even if you're already deep into your first year of retirement, there is still time to make 1 or 2 adjustments before December 31st that can genuinely soften this. You didn't do anything wrong, and you're not careless. You simply crossed into a year that plays by different rules than every single year that came before it, and now you know what those rules are. If this helped make sense of something that felt confusing or worrying, do me a favor, hit like on this video, subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss next week's video, and share this with anyone you know who's retiring soon. It really could save them from a surprise letter 2 years from now, the same way it just might save you. I'm Anne. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.